And we are live. It's Dr. J in the house with Evan Brand. Today, we're going to be talking about chronic food allergies. We had a lot of patients come in the last few weeks or so that just they can only tolerate like one food, or they're incredibly sensitive to supplements, or they have incredible environmental sensitivities. We're going to talk about just some of the strategies that we employ. And if you're one of these people, or you're kind of in between, what are things that you can do? And if you want to dive in, we'll give you options, kind of next steps to also be able to work with us. All right, guys, let's dive in. Evan, my man, how are we doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? Doing well. I don't have snow, so I'm really happy about that. You've got it. My grandma's
Yep.
got it. I
Yep.
don't miss that at all. So
No.
I'm still trying to get outside, get sunlight. I went swimming. I guess was it this week or last week? I can't keep track of time with three kids. But anyway, I'm back to
Yeah.
swimming. I'm back in the sun, so I'm feeling good. And what I noticed, me personally, is that when I'm doing all the good self care strategies, I'm less reactive to foods. But when I'm not
Mm.
getting enough exercise, not getting enough sunlight, I'm too booked up clinically. That's when I start reacting to more foods. So there's a direct impact of your stress response and your food sensitivities. And I got off the call with a young girl this morning. She's in a finance position. She's working late hours. She's working too many
Hmm.
hours and she's working too late. And she's reactive to everything. She's literally down to eating zucchini, no
Oh my
meats,
God, dude.
no fruits. She's reacting to everything. Now, when we did the functional medicine labs, which we're going to break apart some of these labs today, we uncovered H. pylori. We uncovered a lot of gut bacterial overgrowth. We looked at mold toxicity. She had a lot of mold toxins in her body. She lives up in the Northeast, so there could be a potential for Lyme or co-infections. And so when you start to add significant lifestyle stress, significant infections, significant loads of toxin, you're going to start reacting to things. And we assume this is probably a mast cell activation issue. But as you know, there's no clinical diagnosis for mast cell activation. You could do 24-hour histamine, urinary, but really it's more of if you're reacting to anything and everything, it's probably mast cell.
100%. Again, the first thing is when you look at most patients' history and how they got here, it's usually a combination of poor diet or some kind of emotional stress, physical stress, or just exposure to maybe antibiotics, or it could just be chronic conventional food, and that maybe glyphosate exposure, Roundup exposure has weakened their microbiome. Chronic stress lessens enzyme levels, it lessens acid levels, it decreases bile. Can also, activate the sympathetic nervous system, which means less vagus nerve, less parasympathetic, which means less motility. So if you're not moving the intestine, the food inside of you, and you're not breaking it down well, and let's say you're getting too much antibiotic exposure, let's say in a microdose via glyphosate or in a macrodose via actual antibiotics every year, that can really play a nasty role on your gut. It can make it more permeable. It can make it so the beneficial bacteria in the gut start to go down. Beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus acidophilus, literally has a Latin translation to acid loving. And so these beneficial bacteria produce acids that make it harder for the bad stuff to grow and make it easier for the good stuff to grow. The good stuff also creates fermentation. It creates vitamin K. It creates certain B vitamins, B12. So it's really important that you have good, healthy bacteria levels for endogenous nutrient production. That means it produces nutrients inside of you, but then also what it does to make the bad stuff have a harder time to grow, and what it does for motility, right? Beneficial bacteria help that migrating motor complex work well. That's that coordinated wave-like contractions throughout the intestines that helps that food move through. And if we have lots of dysbiotic bacteria, you're going to get excess methane, which tends to slow things down. That's the kind of the rotten eggs, flatulence smell. Or we can have just excess hydrogen, right? And hydrogen tends to create diarrhea. You could alternate, you could have a combination of the two. It's possible. And that may be more flatulence that's more neutral smelling, but it's more air. And so it could be a combination of all that. And obviously, too, if you have burping issues, it could be you have hydrogen sulfide. It could be a lot of bacteria overgrowth in the stomach. It could be H. pylori. And then, of course, there could be parasites and candida and other fungal or other infections interplaying between the two. And so we like to look at everything holistically, and we always start with the food first.
Yeah, and that was a mouthful. So if somebody's listening and their mind is already blown, we're going to break it down for you simply. And what he's describing is the combination of variables
Mhm.
that all makes or breaks your food reactions. And this affects your skin, and this is also going to affect your emotions and your behavior. So oftentimes when these people are reacting to all these foods, they also have anxiety, they have depression, they have chronic fatigue, they have skin issues. And so I just want you to make sure that you wrap your head around. It's not just the food sensitivity, it's also the other symptoms that come along with these infections. And most people are going to miss that because you're going to go to the gastro doc, right? They're going to put you on an acid blocking medication or maybe some other type of pharmaceutical, an immune suppressant, who knows. Now, they're probably going to refer out to a psychiatrist or to a, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
we got Casey and the Sunshine Band playing. That's my
Wow.
ringtone. That's the way. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So the gastroenterologist is going to put you on PPIs, and then you got the neurologist for the anxiety, for the depression. They're going to put you on the anti-anxiety med. They're going to put you on the antidepressant. And so now you're on 3, 4, 5, 6 medications. You're reacting to all these foods. You have these mood issues. And that's where things start to spiral out of control, because then you come to us, you've got this pharmaceutical list that's so long. But if you get the proper data, we can actually fix it. And you mentioned the inability to break down the food as a reason for the food sensitivity. And I would say the best way to look at that is going to be the GI map page 4, because we've got
Mhm.
steatocrit and we have elastase. So we can see if your pancreatic enzyme function is too low, and then we can see if your fecal fat is too high. What else would you say would be an indicator? Like if you're someone listening and you're like, hey, I've got these labs already, or maybe I'm going to order these labs, what other places would you look? I'd say page 4. What else?
Well, so on that page, we like to look at the immunoglobulin. So immunoglobulin A, because that immune mucosal barrier may be very weak, right? So you have this immune mucosal barrier in your sinuses and your eye cavities, your ears, urinary tract, vaginal canal, urethra, right? It's all going to be there. That's the first line of immune defense. So if that immunoglobulin A has worn down, that's a sign that that intestinal barrier is also weaker and the chance of gut permeability is higher. As the gut becomes more permeable, you're going to potentially activate what's called the Th2 immune response. That's going to be the humoral immune response. That's going to be the where your body generates antibodies. And when your Th2 is excessively overactive, that can stimulate your body going after foods more succinctly. There are certain medications that have been out for years that are injectable that can increase Th2 immune response. We know that because when we want to develop antibodies to go after certain bugs, that's a good thing, right? But if we overdo it, it can sometimes create a hyperactive immune system that can make your go after foods and be more sensitive. So we have a Th2 immune response. So we need to do things to calm that Th2 immune response down. So the first thing is make sure the foods are not inflammatory. Make sure we can actually break the foods down. You'd be surprised when someone's gut is a disaster, they may have a hard time digesting and breaking foods down. So that's where bringing an Instapot in can be helpful. I try to stay away from a crock pot because crock pot, while good for the average person, that longer cooking time can increase histamine. And if someone already has mast cell issues or they already have a lot of histamine in their gut because of the bacteria in the gut being off, or they got mold in their environment, that's going to cause an issue. So that's why we use an Instapot, because it cooks what a crock pot would take 8 to 12 hours. It does it in 45 minutes. So we have less histamine. So that pre-digestion can be really good. We work on foundational things like just chewing your food up really well, not overly hydrating with foods. A couple ounces to get pills down, but do it 15 minutes before a meal. We try to make sure we activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We can do vagal nerve stimulation. I got a vagal nerve over here that I use right in this area that kind of work on that trigeminal nerve, which can activate the vagus nerve. We can do parasympathetic breathing. We can do cold plunging. We can do prayer. We can do meditation. Just sitting at your meal before you eat, just say a prayer and be appreciative of everything in your life. These things activate the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. The sympathetic is go, 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 fear, 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 fight, fight, fight. And so we want to make sure we're on top of our nervous system function, which is simple modalities.
Yeah, well said. And even in just the last 5 years, it seems like everybody's stuck in fight or flight. You know, the whole pandemic issue and people being stuck in fight or flight from that. I feel like society never fully recovered from it. I
Mhm.
mean, you tell me if you think differently, but when I
Yeah,
look around, it seems like everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Like everyone is
yeah,
not really grounded. I would say American society is not very grounded. And we have
yeah,
clients in other countries. It seems the same. Australia, Canada, like it's everywhere. Maybe
yeah.
in less developed countries, it's more chill in Costa Rica or something. But I would say in general, people's lifestyles are directly impacting their digestion because they're not ever taking time to even get off their phone long enough to chew their food. It's just this,
Correct.
let me shove this food down real quick so I can get back
Yeah.
to my day.
Correct. And when we see these immune imbalances, certain things we can do just to help on the immune wise, just make sure the inflammation in the food is down. So we'll look at certain diets, whether it's autoimmune or low fermentable diets. We're going to make sure vitamin D, vitamin A, and glutathione are optimized because that has a way of enhancing Th1 and modulating that Th1, Th2 immune balance. So Th1 is the cytotoxic immune response. That's the natural killer cells. That's like essentially the Navy SEALs, the Delta team, right? That's the special forces going in, and the humoral immune response, that's the Th2. That's the, let's just say, the infantry coming in after the fact. And so when we're two THD, 2H, Th2 dominant, say that 10 times fast, that's going to create more food allergy. So vitamin D, vitamin A, glutathione could be helpful. Zinc, right? Really important for T cell activation and promoting Th1 cytokine responses. So we can get that from oysters or seafood, or we can add in a zinc lozenge if our gut's jacked up. Selenium, very helpful, supports, our antiviral activation. So Th1 is very important. Selenium bumps that up. If we're a female and we're anemic, or if we're a male and we're vegetarian and we have low iron, that could be a problem too. So those are some of the core nutrients we'll always look at supporting. And glutathione, we can get it up with NAC. That's a good option. If we're really sensitive, we can even do a nebulized glutathione. That's a good option too. But these can be, or if we're really sensitive, let's get some sun. Let's go out and get some sun, or a supplement this time of year in the winter, right? So there are some things that we can do. So when I look at like the immune response, we can push it with supplements, but that's still not the root cause. We still have to look at the diet, the digestion, lifestyle, looking at the adrenals, the parasympathetics, and the female or male hormones can be a big thing, because if our female or male hormones are depleted, low progesterone, estrogen dominance, and again, you can have low progesterone and low estrogen and still be estrogen dominant. Men, low T. These hormones are anabolic. They help you heal. They help you recover. So if we're overly stressed and we're not healing and recovering, that's going to make it hard for your immune system to be healthy. So we want to look at the hormonal component as well.
Yeah, this sounds like a lot, but it can really be broken down with just a few at-home lab tests. We can do urine and
Yes.
stool and
Yep.
investigate most of this. And our goal is to help you make the most simple but effective protocol. And most people that reach out to us have been to 10 or 20 practitioners before, and they're taking 20, 30, 40, 50 supplements, and they're really no better off. And what's happened in the functional medicine world is functional medicine's actually become somewhat of a buzzword, somewhat of a marketing word. And so now what you and I've been seeing for the last decade now is that you have some conventional medical doctors that are now transitioning out of practice. They don't want to deal with the insurance model. They want to go more cash based. They're going functional medicine. And so they just slap functional medicine on their website. But then when you actually look at these guys' protocols, it's very generic stuff and none of it is root cause. And so what we do
Correct.
differently is we're looking at your actual triggers. Of course, we can throw this extra fish oil and this extra whatever at you, but it might not fix your issue. And so that's where I think people are somewhat what's the word, jaded. Like, I deal with skeptics more than I used to because of this marketing effort, meaning the naturopath and whoever, everybody's throwing supplements at everybody, but none of it is laser focused targeted protocols like what we're doing. It's all just a crapshoot. It's like they went to Chat GPT. What are the best 20 supplements I should take
Yeah.
for optimal
Hmm.
health? They took all 20 and they wonder why they're not better. And it's because it's not based on your actual data. So for example, if we get this GI map test done on you and we see that you have a dysbiotic bacteria, we're going to
Yeah.
use specific herbal antibiotics to
Hmm.
address those bugs. We're not just going to give you the zinc, we're going to give you the herbs to fix the infection. And so if you feel like you've been jaded and you've bought a bunch of stuff and you're not better, I would just encourage you to look back at that. And was that a root cause targeted protocol or was that just a crapshoot?
So great points there. So I had a patient that I saw this morning, and the patient started having gut issues in 2021. All right, I won't give any information up. I'll just keep it simple. The first thing her doctor, who was more functional medicine trained, functional medicine MD, guess what the first thing he did was? He got her on just primarily hormonal support, got her on higher dose testosterone, got her on higher dose progesterone. And in my opinion, way too high. I have labs to look at it. When you're 5 or 6 times the lab reference range on the high end, that's too high. But guess what happened? She felt better for a year or two. And then what happened? Over time, she got exposed to a Lyme bug, some other antibiotics came in, and then the gut issues became 10 times worse, right? And it's because the hormonal support was just covering up the symptoms of the gut. Now, hormones can help because it can put someone more parasympathetic. It can help someone become more anabolic, heal, and recover. But if you're not fixing the underlying issue, you're just still covering it up, right? Now, that being said, I still like that method over just like, let's say, maybe giving an acid blocker or a steroid drug, because that doesn't fix the cause at all. And there's more side effects with that, right? But again, you want to get to the root issue. So if you're seeing a true functional medicine doctor, we're going to be getting to the root underlying cause. We're going to be working on the adrenals. We'll be doing everything together in a sequential plan, not just using hormones to cover up symptoms. That's the difference. And like Evan said earlier, there's not like this standardized residency that a functional medicine doctor goes through. I have learned from some of the best doctors out there. I also have 5,000 plus patients, 15 years full time. So I've learned a ton. When you interact with a patient, you get tons of data of what works and what doesn't work, and you learn with each patient. And there's patterns and there's things that are consistent and tried and true. And so that plays a role. And there's none of that information in ChatGPT. It's just not there, right? There's so much that is you can't just get online. So much of it is just experience and trial and error. Now you get the underlying physiology and biochemistry. That's important because that's all foundational. You have to know how the body works, but then how you plug everything in, that there's an art to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend the other day and he was skeptical about herbs. And I'm like, well, general skepticism is not very helpful. Tell me, what is your exact
Yes.
skepticism? Because, oh, I'm skeptical about herbs. Like, what do you mean? Like, and so I sent him a paper. He was having some sleep issues. I sent him a paper, double blind, placebo controlled trial of passion flower, and how passion flower significantly improved the restfulness, the quality of the sleep, the fatigue levels during the day. I'm like, dude, there's a double blind. How many more do you want? So this stuff is out there, and herbal medicine is life changing. You and I don't really call ourselves herbalists, but we are. I don't even think
Mhm.
there's a like. I don't
It's a
like.
modality
Yeah,
within our toolbox for sure.
this is an
Mhm.
incredible opportunity, and to see people that have had antibiotic resistant infections and then we clear those with herbs has been life changing, literally. And so,
Totally.
so here's what you need to do. If you have food sensitivities, food reactions, do you need a food sensitivity test? I want to pose that question to you because for me, years ago, I'd run these food sensitivity panels, but after seeing so many people and seeing so many issues pop up, I think that it was creating more fear. And so I don't run them. But what is your opinion? Food sensitivity testing, yay or nay?
Yeah, so I typically do not recommend it out of the gate because anyone who has, let's say, the analogy I give to patients is, hey, let's say this food allergy panel says that you have strawberry allergy, and then you start eating blueberries. Well, if you still have gut permeability, you retest the next month, it'll probably say blueberries are now the issue. And so I try to fix the underlying reason why that intestinal barrier is weak, why the immune system is getting exposed to those foods, and why that immune response is there, because that's the underlying issue. So in the meantime, typically we just say, if you love it, rotate some of your proteins, rotate some of the colors of the carbs that you're eating. I have a lot of the foods organized by taxonomy group. So food genetics, so the most similar proteins together, the least similar. And so we just keep that. So we have a rotation component. So if someone's very sensitive, we're going to try to rotate. We're going to try to cook those foods really, really well. Instapot it, super stew, make it very easy to digest. If you're really sensitive, we're going to do more soups or broths. We may even blend it up and just sip it and make it like a nice, thick broth that you sip to get the nutrients in. So it's really pre-digested. We may use amino acids that are free form and pre-broken down. So they're very easy to digest. We may even use elemental powders. There's various kinds that we can do where the amino acids are all in free form. So there's no digestion that has to happen. These are all really good options. And food allergy testing can be helpful for people if they're already in a good place and then we've already got some stability and you want to see what's going on. That's better. And there's some good ones out there, like MRT is good. That's looking not at just that IgG, but other immune cell interactions that are happening. So it'll give you a little bit more of a deeper window into just the immune response. Conventional medicine only looks at food allergies from a IgE, anaphylactic response. So most people know, like, oh, this kid's got the peanut allergy. They got to give the school nurse the EpiPen in case he gets exposed, right? That's like your IgE, your anaphylactic, the throat closing, the big hives and welts. That's the skin test they'll do on your back at the allergist. That's not what we're typically dealing with. We're typically dealing with chronic delayed allergies that can create inflammation over time. They're more IgE or delay immune mediated responses. Totally different what you see at the food allergist.
Yeah. And long story short, if you have infections, toxins, other things disrupting your gut, you're going to have more false positives on that food sensitivity
Bingo.
test. For example, I had a woman say, "Hey, I'm allergic to every single meat on my food allergy test, chicken, turkey, beef." But she was never rotating anything, and her diet
Bingo.
was like six foods. And so if you're just eating six foods, you're probably going to end up deeper in the hole. I know that's weird to say, but that's what we've seen. And ultimately, you have to use some mast cell stabilizers. I've got a bottle right here. This is a histamine mast cell formula that I have. Now, this one has quercetin. This one
Yep.
has perea leaf. These work. And you can do cromolyn, you can do ketotifen, you could do some of these pharmaceutical mast cell
Right.
stabilizers to try and calm your reactivity. But I would try the nutrients. And the nutrients might make it to where you don't need the drugs. And you hit on enzymes and you hit on acids in the gut. We talked about how on the stool test, we're going to look for indicators that we need to add more acids and enzymes. I would also throw DAO into that acid and enzyme
Sure.
box because I was reacting to histamine foods several years ago and now I'm significantly better. And I believe what happens is, I mean, this is hard to prove, but I believe that if you're supplementing acids, enzymes, as well as some extra DAO, you're actually allowing your body to build up its natural reserves and you're not depleting yourself because now I don't need DAO and I have less reactivity to high histamine foods like avocado, pineapple, tomatoes. Those are all high histamine foods. And I actually have a histamine food guide. I'll try to put it in the show notes for people.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I think, from a ancestral standpoint, we probably were getting organ meats, right? And a lot of the organ meats, like the kidneys, have a lot of DAO in it. And so I think from a cultural standpoint, we probably were getting more DAO naturally in our food. Again, like conventional medicine typically may throw an H1 blocker at you, which may be like a Benadryl or a Claritin, right? Right. Benadryl, like more sedating, Claritin, less sedating, right? Then you have your H2 blockers, which are like your Pepcid AC, right? That's used for acid reflux, but they're H2, histamine 2. And then you have the mast cell stabilizing medication. That's the cromolyn, that's the ketotifen, right? These are the mast cell stabilizing drugs. And then you have the IgE end result, which is the EpiPen, right? Adrenaclick. These are the epinephrine injectables because of that IgE immune reaction. And then you have other ones like Montelukast, right? This is like your Singulair, those kind of things. Asthmatics, those kind of things. So with food allergies, that can be a thing because what else can drive up your immune response? Well, let's say you have mold in your air or a lot of allergens from outside, trees, pollen, danders that are in your sinus cavity. You go back inside just because you're inside from the outside world doesn't mean all that allergens and antigens aren't in your home and aren't up your nose. And so you need protocols to clean your air and also clean your sinuses. That plays in a very important role because that can increase that Th2 immune response. And if it's upregulated, it can easily start going after foods next.
And this might sound crazy, but what you're saying is that sinus issues can directly
Mhm.
affect not only what's happening with your gut, but also your immune system. And once
Correct.
again, because of the specialization of medicine, if you go to your gastro doc and you try to talk about how your sinus issues could be affecting your gut, they're probably not going to help you very much. And we have gastro doctor friends. They're not going to say you need to do sinus rinses to fix your irritable bowel.
And my favorite thing is I use these Xlears. This I'll use more for like cold season because it's got some herbs in there like padiarco. It's got parsley. It's got eucalyptus, grapefruit seed. Regular is great for just chronic use. Allergens are in the air. This is just grapefruit. And then there's a red one called Max. But I'll just do 2 squirts. When you do it, you want to breathe in, and you know you did it right when you can taste it go down the back of the palate.
Are you
This
doing
one's
the
a little
regular
spicy.
or the
This is the
Bernie?
this is the rescue. This one's
Okay.
burns. Like my kids are like, I don't want the one that burns. And so sometimes we'll do this one first. Then I'll get my sinus flush bottle, 3 second flush, blow, 3 second flush, blow. And then I'll chase it down with the regular, which is a little bit more gentle. And then 2 2 2 2. And, or if they're really sensitive, I get the max because the max has capsicum, it has the grapefruit, but it also has the added aloe. So if your kids are sensitive, do that one. But I recommend in cold and flu season, rescue all day long. You just gotta suck it up and get a little tough. That's all.
You know, that's one of my favorite functional medicine party tricks. I usually buy a few bottles, so I buy a little bit more in bulk. So I usually have an unopened bottle. You'll have a friend or somebody come over complaining about their sinuses, and I'll just
Amazing.
say, "Here you go, let's hit it." And watching their reactions to
Yep.
that, and then also dosing people with extremely bitter herbs is a guilty pleasure of mine. Like you get somebody that comes over, they're talking about stress or anxiety, and I'll just give them like straight ashwagandha passion flower tincture
Oh yeah.
It's
Dude,
always
I
fun.
remember, man, like when I was in like doctorate school, I remember the finals, like we had finals and stuff, right? I remember a bunch of like us that were really into functional medicine. We got these herbal tinctures and we lined them up. We had ginseng, we had astragalus, we had licorice root, and we literally lined them up and did like a shot contest going through like all of our big herbs before we did like a big kind of like studying session. And so that was kind of fun. It's kind of a
That's
little nerdy.
killer. That's
So
awesome.
once you do these things, though, your nose will run a little bit because the Xlear, the xylitol, will hit the mucus and break it up. It's like Dawn soap on a greasy pan. So you want to blow your nose. I'll spare you the blowing here. And then afterwards, you flush. I had an incident this summer where I had a cough and it lasted for a month and a half. I was doing my sinus flush and it wasn't getting rid of it. I'm like, Justin, what is going on here? I added back in, I forgot the Xlear right before. And then when I did it, a whole bunch of extra mucus came out. And so the moral of the story is the Xlear is a very important recipe to do before and ideally after the flush because it can really get stuck mucus that's dripping in the back out.
Yeah, well said. Momo, Evan, I've watched you for years. You're looking younger, my friend. I'm sure much healthier. Hey, thank you. I wonder sometimes, I feel like I'm aging, but I appreciate that. And I put on some weight too. I lost 30 pounds for people that don't know my story. I mean, uh, I had parasites. I had H. pylori. I mean, I was a mess. My gut was a mess. My skin was a mess. Luckily, when I was a teenager, my wife saw past that and still loved me through it. But I went through hell and back with my gut. So I totally empathize with you all that have food reactions, that have gut sensitivity. Like, I went to the conventional GI. They wanted to put me on drugs. I didn't take any of the drugs. I just found nutrition, but then I didn't know I had parasites the whole time. So when you see people, which I've been on his show, but when you see people like Paul Saladino doing these influencer videos about like just eat more steak, that's all good, but it's not going to clear Giardia. It's not going to clear Candida. And
No,
so
no.
if you're watching these nutrition influencers online and you're wondering, why have I done everything that they told me to do and I still feel like garbage? Well, you've got to get the data. And
Yeah.
so anyway, and then Raphael said here, just joined, but wanted to add, after the virus and the injection, I gained a lot of food sensitivities. And that's exactly what I discussed with the girl this morning.
That's the TH2 response we were kind of alluding to.
Yeah. So this girl this
Yep.
morning, who I told you is reactive to literally every food, I said, well, what was, because she got the injection, the hokey pokey. I said, what
Yep.
was your level of gut issues pre-injection? She rated it a 5 out of 10. What is your issue now? She rated a 9.5 out of 10. And so I said, okay, so that severity, that increase in symptoms correlates exactly to the timeline. You got this injection, immune system went haywire. Now you're reactive to everything.
And it makes sense why there's certain compounds that are out there that can clear those issues out. And one of those nutrients is quercetin. Quercetin can be helpful. Thymolin can be helpful, which modulates the immune response, and also systemic enzymes. So we'll even do things like nattokinase, serrapeptidase. We'll even do bromelain-based enzymes, and that will clear out some of these proteins that are in our blood that could be negatively impacting the immune response. So we can do that too. And just kind of getting back on anti-aging for 1 second, make sure your blood's not glycating. Most people accelerate their aging process because they're glycating, right? Too much sugar, too much carbohydrates, that sugar coats the proteins, that creates free radical stress, that creates oxidation, right? Oxidation, cut open an avocado, leave it there. What happens? It browns. Now go squeeze a little bit of lemon juice on it. What happens? It stays fine, right? That's what happens. So measure your blood sugar, fasting 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. Don't get below 120 to 130 in the first hour, back below 100 within hour 2 to 3. That will make sure your glycation's under control. Adjust your carbs accordingly. Don't get too much sun where you burn. Sun is good, just don't burn, and use good moisturizer on your skin. I like emu oil. Keep your skin moist. That will help on the aging side for sure.
Did
Simple
you
things there.
did you say you do emu oil on your face? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Emu oil is wonderful. Yeah, it's
that's cool.
basically like an ostrich-like bird. Emu oil is used in some of the biggest burn victim units on like literally, level 3 burn victims, right? We're talking burn all the way through the epidermis and dermis, full on, skin graft. And it is one of the most healing anti-inflammatory oils. It's not too expensive. There's a lot of products that are out there that are good, but they're very expensive. Emu oil is in the grasp of almost anyone that wants to care for their skin. And so that's why I like it. And I've seen it be used at patients that are full body, grade 3, level 3, burns. And so I see it have good results. And so very good. And it's also non-comedogenic, will not clog the pores. And it's also bacteriostatic, will also, help with microbes on the skin, like the QT bacterium, acne bacteria.
Super cool. Okay,
Yep.
so what do people need to know in regards to the testing? Well, we discussed that
Yep.
food sensitivity testing may not be helpful in this phase. I know you think that's the first test to go to because you're like, I have these reactions. I want clear evidence of what I'm reacting to. But the unfortunate part is when your immune system is dysregulated, it might not be the best data. And so we're going to push you more towards the functional labs. That's going to be potentially hormone testing. This could be like a Dutch panel. This could be an organic acids, a mycotoxin screen to look for mold. We could do toxic chemicals to look for glyphosate and other compounds disrupting the gut. And then obviously we want to get a stool panel on you as well. So urine and stool, these are done at home. We order those for you. You do those at home. You mail those back to the lab. We get the results. We'll jump on a call. We work worldwide, and then we'll make a protocol that's going to help address that.
Yep. So talked about lab stuff, talked about some of the gut testing. We can look at hormones, right? We can look at organic acids, which give us another look into the gut via urinary metabolites. It looks at candida yeast. It can look at colonized mold in the gut. We may test the home. We may test the home for mold. If someone's chronically immune sensitive, we want to make sure the home is dialed in. We're definitely getting air filtration. That's a no-brainer. We're definitely doing sinus flushes just to make sure the immune system is not reactive. And again, if we have congestion, that drives more suspicion into that area. See here. Talked about testing, what we can do. Now, we can look deeper at gut bacteria. Again, probiotics, prebiotics can be helpful, but with a lot of these patients, it makes the problem worse because they already have an imbalance in the microbiome. So that may be something we utilize, but just not right now. Timing is everything. Patients that have been through the ringer, they're like, well, I done this, it didn't work. Done this, it didn't work. It's like the timing is everything. If I gave you a recipe and you mix the flours and you add the eggs in after you baked it, it's going to come out like garbage, right? So the timing is everything. So probiotics, prebiotics, timing. We may add in curcumin. We may add in quercetin. We may add in collagen or free amino acids, or maybe some kind of an elemental diet, or maybe even a zero fiber diet initially. We look at vitamin D, vitamin A, zinc, selenium. I mentioned that. We're going to look at go organic, or at least make sure there's no glyphosate on your food. Glyphosate was patented as an antibiotic originally. That could be knocking down your healthy gut microbiome. People talk about FMTs, fecal microbial transplants. I've seen them be totally hit or miss, and some people even make them worse. I want to get your take, Evan. I think it's kind of a panacea. Like that's like the functional medicine world, like the conventional doctors kind of taking some of the functional medicine stuff, and it's kind of a hit or miss, and mostly doesn't move the needle or not. And then also, where do you get the transplant from? Do they have an infection? Do they have H. pylori? What's happening with that? What's your take?
My take is I've had people that have done fecal transplants and it actually changed their personality. And
Mm.
there's studies on that. If you just
Hmm.
Google
Hmm.
FMT personality, I've had people that all of a sudden have new food cravings for French fries, or all of a
Yep.
sudden they want pizza. And so there's literally memories stored in our gut
Yep.
microbiome, and parts of our personality are coming from our gut rather than our brain. I've seen people become more anxious. I've seen people become more depressed. I've seen people become less depressed, less anxious. And so I've seen a handful of the fecal transplant people. But let me tell you this, I've never seen it stick. Like you said with the hormone
Hmm.
story earlier, maybe someone says they've got a little bit of relief for a few months. And then I think their body's like, hey, I know what you did here. And then they go back to their old self. So I've never seen it as like a cure all.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing, and also I've seen people actually get worse because are they really doing comprehensive gut testing on the people they're getting the transplant from?
Right.
You could be giving yourself an infection. You could be giving yourself H. pylori. You don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a lot of the adrenal support, guess what, can help the Th1 immune response. So getting the hormones stable can help. And we got to make sure the food is dialed in and is tight. And it's not just the food, but it's also how it's cooked and making sure we have our enzymes, our acid, and our bile and chewing all dialed in. And we got to work on the parasympathetic. That's where sometimes adding in like a DNRS program or like, you'll see some of these protocols like EFT or NLP. There's different protocols that can be very helpful. The Gupta program that can help if someone's really, really stressed or has different traumas in the past that are just keeping their nervous system just on absolute overdrive. Those things can be very helpful to add in if everything else is not working.
Yep. So check out the links below. We'll put a link. We've got a histamine guide. We got some supplements you can try out. These are just like some low hanging fruit. Ultimately, get the data, test, don't guess with your health. We'd be happy to build a customized protocol based on what we find. You can reach out to Dr. J at justinhealth.com. Worldwide consults available. Dr. J, justinhealth.com, or me, Evan Brand at evanbrand.com. We'd love the opportunity to help you all. We're so fortunate to have 10,000 plus between us cases under our belt now, combined total 20 plus years. And it's been a ride, and we're still learning and we're still implementing. And so we want you to know that we are staying on top of everything. We dive into PubMed, we look at studies, we look at research to not only help ourselves clinically, but also for the show. So we want to give you all the most up-to-date info we can, and we want to learn, and we want to continue to be lifelong students as well as practitioners. So jump on, have some fun with us. Let's get you feeling good.
And I get it. It's a lot of information. So just take one thing, apply it. And then if you're still at a standstill, evanbrand.com for Evan, justinhealth.com for myself, Dr. J. And we are here to help. And just share this with one family member that could benefit too. This is a lot of stuff out there, a lot of misinformation. We want to give you information that's like we're in the trenches using it and applying it. It's not just something that we got from ChatGPT, right? We're using it. We're doing it. Right. So hope it helps. And Evan, great podcast, man. Really good.
Yeah, man, you too. And a buddy, a guy who sings at church, he sent me a screenshot
Yeah.
right before we jumped on of him listening to our podcast episode we did on headaches recently.
Oh,
So, yeah,
nice.
so he's going to spread it with his friends, and so this is what we need. We need people to learn that there is an alternative model here that
Love
is
it.
in much ways, in a lot of ways, it's better because these gut issues that go unresolved, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, colon cancer, irritable bowel diseases, like this stuff gets more serious. We want to help you before it even gets to that point. If you're to that point, we can help as well. We have a lot of experience with autoimmune, but man, I tell you, like, don't just eat the garbage until you're bleeding out of your butt. Like, if you see something is
Yes.
off, let's get you better before you're to that point of ulceration.
And get screened by your conventional doctor, or at least let them screen you. But then you can kind of look at both options and make a decision from there.
Yeah.
So awesome, guys. Nice chatting with y'all. And Evan, great.